Hi, I'm just making a little video. My videos are never little. I go on too long, but I'm a little long-winded, I guess. Um, Guys are always trying to get a good CB working in their vehicle, so they'll do all kinds of crazy things, putting ball mounts here and putting antenna mounts on the beds or over the fender. They try everything under the sun. And I always tell them, geez, I've got a Tram 3500 that does fantastic. I get well over 10 miles most times with a good President radio. And that's going to my home base. So, of course, it's a lot. My home base is really pulls the signal in. Mobile to mobile, you won't get that much, but I always get over 10 miles. Sometimes I've gotten 20 miles to my home base. But guys will say, I can't get in and out of the garage. If I can't get in and out of the garage, I'm not putting that antenna on the roof. So I said, well, I go in and out of my garage every day. I've never had a problem. 2 years. My garage door's not scratched up. The paint's not scratched. Nothing's scratched up. You can go in and out. You can go in and out of the garage door. I do it 3 or 4 times a day. I've had my Tram 3500 on the roof of the truck for 2 years. Never an issue. So I'm just kind of making a little video to show you. Easy to just $59, $59.99 at Amazon. $50 antenna, $60 antenna. Just put it on the roof. It works great, and you're done. Why play all these other games? So if you're thinking you can't get a Tram 3500 on the roof, take a look at this, and I'll show you you can. So I'm just showing, these are 8-foot doors, spring at the top. So I'm sure if they sheetrocked and if they, yeah, that piece that brings the door up and back is going to be well over 9 feet. And if they sheetrocked above that, you're probably going to have 9 to 10 feet. So driving the vehicle, a pickup in and out of your garage with a Tram 3500 on the roof is very simple. So it's just so simple to set it up there, and it works great. What happens is people figure they can't get the magnetic antenna on the roof, so they do all kinds of hard things. They sometimes guys will come back and they'll put a CB mount on the bumper here, and the CB will come up. Well, 2 things. One, if you do that, it's very hard to get a ground plane. So if you do it, you need big, huge bolts going through there. You can't just use little sheet metal screws. You can't use a wire to get you a ground plane. And if you do, even if you do get it to get a good RF bond, so the radio signals will bond and go to the body panels, you only have maybe 3 inches wide on the bumper. So the length of the bumper, maybe you have 20 square inches of ground plane, not very much. And then when the antenna comes up along this bed, well, that's going to kill the performance of the antenna. Instead of radiating in a 360-degree radius like the one on the roof does, you're only going to get, it's only going to transmit in one direction. So you lose half your direction. You can't talk. You can only talk one way. And some guys will mount the antenna on the side of the bed rail. Well, again, they'll use 2 little screws. Those 2 little screws won't ground the ground plane to the bed of the pickup. You've got to grind all the paint off, and you've got to use big bolts. And you can't have any, like I say, you can't have any paint at all. It's got to be metal to metal touching. Then if you put an antenna bracket here, well, again, you only have 3 inches. You're lucky to have 3 inches on this bed rail. I know you're saying, well, we got all kinds of metal in the bed, but the metal in the bed is surrounded by the bed. It's like a Faraday cage. So the metal on the bottom of the bed doesn't really seem to radiate as well. You want the metal under the antenna, not far away. I don't think, a Faraday cage blocks all signals. A Faraday cage is just a metal box. And if you try to get a radio signal inside of a metal box, it won't go in. Radio signals won't go in or out of a metal box. Well, I would think this bed is a great big metal box. So you want to have the antenna above that. And the other thing, if you mount the antenna here, again, you have the cab right here, and the cab kills the performance of the antenna. You want the antenna all out in the open, like I have my antenna on the roof. There's nothing around it. For 360 degrees, that can radiate really nice and not have any obstructions or anything. Nothing to kill the performance. So you don't want it near the bed or anything. You want it up on the top. Now, if you have an antenna, a quarter wave antenna is about 9 feet. So this antenna is 5 feet tall. So if it's 5 feet tall, then we probably have a 4 foot of coil in the bottom of the antenna. So that way your 4 foot coil plus a 5-inch whip makes the 9 feet. So that's one side of an antenna on a quarter wave antenna. That's 9 feet. Well, that's one side of the antenna. You need the other side, and that's called the counterpoise or the ground plane. If you have a 9-foot antenna, you need 9 feet of metal under the antenna to reflect off of. Well, this, if you put it on the roof of the truck, from here to here is probably 3 feet. You know, the whole length of this roof is probably 3 feet. It's probably 6 feet wide. So I easily have 6 feet of ground plane. But if you put it on the back bumper, or you put it on the rail, you're not going to have, I mean, it'll work. It'll get you a couple of miles, might get you 2, 3, who knows, might get you 4 miles. But it's not going to do that. It's not going to do what it would if you have 9 feet of counterpoise under the antenna. That's the other half of the antenna. If you don't have the 9 feet above and 9 feet below, it doesn't work very well. It works a little bit, but it doesn't work as nice as this. So you want to try to get it up on the roof. And you can easily, it's a $59 antenna. You easily put it on the roof. It'll work fantastic. And I'm just showing you that it goes in and out. These are standard 8-foot doors. The sheetrock's easily going to be maybe 18 to 2 feet above it. So I think you're going to have 10 feet of sheetrock above it. And that's an 11 foot tall, 6 foot tall truck. 5 foot of antenna would be 11 feet to the tip. So if that's 11 feet to the tip, it only has to bend a couple of feet. Bending a couple of feet is no problem at all for the Tram 3500. So I'm just kind of making this video to show you that you can do a good working CB, not a whole lot of money, and not a whole lot of craziness of trying to get it to bond to all the body panels and everything. Hi YouTube. I'm just doing a little tiny video. I'm showing off my Tram 3500s on the roof of my pickup. And guys are always trying to get a CB to work good. And I tell them that Tram 3500, just drop it on the roof of the truck. $59.99 at Amazon. How can you beat $59.99 at Amazon? With free delivery if you have Prime. I put it on there. I'm always talking 10 plus miles. I go to Texas Roadhouse once a week, about 10 miles away. I'm giving myself an S7 on my home base. S7 is incredibly strong. I've taken that Tram 3500 in terrible conditions out to 16.5 miles and got it. It wasn't pretty because it was terrible conditions, but I could hear myself 16.5. Eric from Far Point Farms, he did a video on this Tram 3500. That's why I bought it. He did a video and he got 18.5 miles. I couldn't believe it. 18.5 miles with a cheap antenna. So I bought one, and I actually wanted to see if I could duplicate what he did. I went out 20 miles. I had to go out in the middle of the night. Conditions were pretty good that night. I made it 20 miles. I could hear myself on my base station. I've got these videos on my YouTube page. If you go to my YouTube page, you'll see I got 16.5 miles in terrible conditions, and I've got 20 miles doing it, and I've got my regular install video that shows when I go 10 miles. S7 is like I'm next door, and this thing really works well. The guy from 5 Point Farms, he put a President CB in his truck. President CBs work fantastic. That's what I have. The guy, Eric from 5 Point Farms, he put a President McKinley right in his dashboard of his car, and that's what he used to do the 18.5 miles with. The Presidents really swing up. Most of if you buy a little tiny radio, you might get 2.5, 3.5 watts. And that's all they put out. And when you key the microphone and talk into it, your modulation pushes the watts up a little bit. Well, the small radios, when you modulate, they go up to about 4 watts. 4 watts isn't much. It's not bad, but that's all you get. And out of a $50 radio, what do you expect out of a $50 radio? You're getting 4 watts modulation. Most of the Presidents, most of the good radios, when you modulate, it goes from, say, 4 watts to 12 to 16. There's only a couple that really do well for small radios. The CS47, that dead keys, after you modify it, the dead keys supposed to be 8 watts on AM and 15 watts on FM. But when I talk on that on AM, it swings up to 17 watts. 17 watts will get you a long ways. The other one is a Radioddity 606 Pro. Make sure you get the Pro. The regular Radioddity 606, you can't modify it to go more watts. But the Radioddity 606 Pro, you can just do a little modification. You just have to move a couple little pins in there. Once you do it, it dead keys 10 watts, a little over 10 watts. And when you talk in the microphone, it modulates over 20 watts. 20 watts. Oh my God, it's incredible. So if you get, and that's only a little 5-inch by 5-inch CB, if you can get it under the dashboard or someplace. If you can't, the Radioddity CS47, you can put it in the back seat. You can put it behind the seats, behind the seats in the cab, and you can buy it. It's the way the microphone plugs in. All the controls are on the microphone, so you can just buy an extension. They call it a Category 6 RJ45 extension cable. So I got a 5-foot in a lot of my friends' vehicle. We wind up putting it way in the put it way in the back. We mount it on a board so it dissipates the heat a little better. We set it behind the seats and we run the wire up under the rug or under the console. And now with that big long 5-foot extension cable, you just plug the microphone into that extension cable, hang it up on your dashboard. You can see it plain as day. And it's got a big, beautiful display. That's it. You grab the microphone. Every button you need is right there in your hand. Works great. So those radios, the Radioddity the Radioddity 606 Pro is $69.99 at Amazon. This antenna is $59.99. The CS47, the Radioddity CS47, is $75 on Amazon. So either one of those radios will get you over 10 miles, and it'll cost you less than 150 bucks. 150 bucks, you're doing great, but you got to put an antenna on the roof. The antennas the other guys use, they're terrible. So when I come in, my antenna, my roof's a lot taller. That antenna is 11 feet to the top. I think I actually, it must be taller. My roof is about, my second floor is about 13 to 14 feet up there. But anyhow, when I come in, there's my antenna bouncing away. Sometimes it'll get stuck under that. Sometimes it gets stuck on that. Now, if you had a traditional door, like I have, they're going to have these rails. No matter what you do, you have these rails in here. And you're probably going to have sheetrock above the rails. You also have these springs. At the top. So you're going to have sheetrock above that. So your roof is going to be as tall as mine. So in fact, that's going to be hanging down quite a bit. I think your roof would probably be like that. So you can see the bend on that. The bend on that is basically nothing. That's not going to hurt the antenna whatsoever. Now, if I can, I'm going to stick that like that, and I'm going to pretend that was a sheetrocked ceiling. In a lot of people's garage, that would be a sheetrocked ceiling. And I'm going to drive out and see what happens. So if I drive in, my antenna's bent like that. And if I was to drive out, let's take a look. Let me put it, let me get this on here. Okay. Yeah. That works. Let's see what happens. But anyhow, I've been doing it for 2 years, never had a problem. Alright, let me drive it in. I'll show you what it looks like from outside. But again, this antenna gives you no trouble at all. Okay, that's where the antenna would stay, roughly. If your door is going to be the same height as my door. This is a standard door here. So when I come in, antenna bends like that. No harm done. No harm done at all. And I can drive right in. I'm going to drive in and I'm going to drive out with it. So I come in, shut the door. When I pull out, I open the door. Okay, I'm in the back of my pickup. Here's my garage door. Now, there's not a mark on here with my antenna. For 2 years, my antenna's been going back and forth across that door, and there's not a mark on it. As far as paint, some people worry about the paint. 2 solid years. Paint's been perfectly fine. What I do Boy, I need to wash that roof, though. What I do is I go through the car wash once a week. When I go through the car wash, I take that magnet, I set it on the floor. So now it's in the bed of the truck. The antenna, I went through the corner of the bed. There's a plastic drain here in the corner. I just drilled a small hole through the plastic drain and put a grommet. Then I drilled into the truck with a grommet. But when I go through the car wash, you have these massive brushes that are swirling, and they're going across the roof of the truck. They go down along the back glass, and here's the bed. And they go across the bed. Well, the brushes are wide, so of course it goes down this side on both sides of the bed. Well, if you can see my coax cable, the coax cable's all the way on the ground. If I had put the coax cable in between the bed and the cab, when those brushes come down, those brushes will grab that coax cable. It'll get wrapped up in the brushes, and it'll make a terrible mess. It'll just grab the antenna out of the back of the bed, fling it around. But the way I have it, if you go through the corner of the bed, now when you go through the car wash, or if you're going through a parking garage or whatever, you can just set it there. Nobody sees the cable. There's no cable crossing this piece. I see guys put them in between the cab and the bed. It's just crazy. Put it in the thing. I had silicone one time, just a little dab of silicone that holds that magnet, holds that cable solid as can be. But I had it running up this side, and I didn't like it on this side. Now, after the car wash, I have steps in the back of my truck, so I just open the steps up. I bring the antenna. I pretty much know where it's going to go. That's about the length of the cable. I bring it up and just drop it back down. I shouldn't tell anybody, but I drive around 99 miles an hour. I go 100 miles an hour with this thing. That thing is not going anywhere. I've never had a problem with it coming off. So now my cable goes right to the side of this. It's kind of concave or whatever. So that kind of holds that right in place. Goes down. This antenna is $59.99 at Amazon. For $59.99, when this cable gets all dried out from the sun, I'll buy a new one. It's gonna last me 5 or 6 or 7 years anyhow. Now, what everybody complains about, people hate magnetic antennas. Well, I can understand it. What they do, people will always open up the back glass and they'll put the wire through it, and they'll slam the wire on it. Then the wire gets broken. The antenna is terrible. Or they'll take the wire and they'll go over and try to get it into the door. Well, every time you shut the door, you're slamming it on the... Insane. Why would you keep breaking the wire? And when you break the wire, you're giving yourself all kinds of headaches and all kinds of trouble. So the way I ran the wire, that's never going to give me any trouble. I only give I run it through the car wash once a week. So once a week, I just jump up in the back. Take it off. Again, the paint's perfectly fine. I run it through the car wash. I know just where it goes. Actually, I'll go over a little bit. And that's it. So, and again, that antenna is extremely, very, very whippy. That antenna is incredibly, incredibly whippy. So it just goes right across, and it can bend. It can bend quite a bit. I mean, my God, that thing's bent way down. No problem at all. So don't be afraid to put this Tram 3500 on the roof. Now, they make a better antenna, the Striker SAR-10. Wow, it does. It definitely performs better than this. I like this Tram 3500. It's very whippy when I go in the woods. It never comes off my roof. I'm always getting 10 plus miles on it. But that Striker is much better. Well, the Striker the Striker probably sits up to here. It's very tall. And then at the top of the Striker, you have this piece of metal. So I'm going to assume the Striker, the metal on the Striker would probably be at least 4 inches taller. 4 inches taller to have this whip here, that might give me a little bit of trouble with my garage door. I still don't think I'll have a problem even with the striker, but I don't want to risk it. So I just, for $59.99 at Amazon, I get the Tram 3500, and it works fantastic. What I did in my truck, this, you can just take out these little, whatever you call them, little buttons to hold them in. You can pull this insulation back. I kind of measured off. I found this on the outside of the bed, so I kind of measured off of that. I drilled I can't remember, I think it was a 3/4 inch hole. Then I put a grommet in. Actually, I drilled a 3/4 inch hole. I only had gray paint. So I painted it gray paint so it wouldn't rust. Then I put the grommet in. Then I ran my coax. I ran my coax through here, and then I siliconed it just to make sure no water gets in. Now, after I ran it in, I just run it under the, coax under my console, and I go right to the CB, and it works great. And so basically, it's a permanent install because I've got a nice hole, and the radio, the antenna sits up on the roof. Never hurts anything. I'm not shutting doors on top of the cable or jamming the cable through a window. It's crazy. Just do it like that. If I ever sell the truck or anything, I just take the cable out. Nobody's ever going to see that little grommet in there. So it works really good for me, and I hope somebody can appreciate the trick. Speaking of ground planing, so you need to get wherever you're putting your antenna. If you're not using a magnetic one, that's why I like that Tram 3500. It's so easy just to set it on the roof. But if you don't, and you're using a fiberglass antenna, and you're connecting it to the bed or to the bumper, you need a 1/2 inch. This is about the size of my thumb. You need a 1/2 inch bolt to go through the metal, 2 of them. Then when you put it in, you need the star washer. You see how these edges are all twisted and bent? Well, when you tighten that down, it's going to push right into your metal and make an incredibly good bond. That's what you need to do. You need to have an RF bond to the antenna mount and to all the body panels of the vehicle you're using it. So what I do, if you do it, you drill a hole, I put a big washer. I put a big washer, and then I use the star washer. Star washer really cuts into it. Now I've got the bracket. Between the CB bracket and the metal, I put another star washer. And then behind everything, yeah, you guessed it, I'm going to use another star washer because I'm really trying to cut it in. Then I'll probably use a lock nut. Excuse me, I'll use another washer to support it all, a lock nut, and then I actually bought these are the ones with the, no, I guess I bought regular nuts. Anyhow, sometimes I'll use those nylon lock nuts, but that'll make a pretty good ground, but you need this humongous bolt, a couple of them. If you don't get a good ground plane, the antenna's not going to work, and if you don't have 9 feet of really flat metal under the antenna, it doesn't work. And also, I see guys using a wire, a little number 12 wire to try to get the bond. RF signal will not travel on a little wire. It travels on the outside of body panels. It needs at least 1.25 inches wide. So that's why they have these huge wide bonding straps, big wide 1.25 inch bonding straps. And that might get the RF to flow from your antenna mount to some of the body panels. But you could just buy the Tram 3500 for $59 and throw it on the roof. That's all this video is about.